Vinnie Mac, I heard you're starting the XFL up again. I'm really excited. I'm going to be the XFL's biggest fan from day one. So I want to help you out. You said you're going to expand to 8 teams. I'll give you 10 possible cities that the XFL should expand to. First things first, I think if the XFL is going to succeed, they shouldn't try to expand to NFL markets. I don't think that they should try and go to cities where there are already NFL teams, for the most part at least. I don't think that's what the league should do. I think they should focus on cities devoid of pro football. So without any further delays, I'm just putting these in random order. So without any delay now, number 1 out of 10 of the possible XFL expansion cities, San Antonio, Texas. San Antonio, I was a bit hesitant to put on here, but you need to understand the XFL needs big markets if it's going to succeed. And as much as it pains me to say this, my hometown of Albuquerque, New Mexico will not be getting an XFL team. It is a somewhat large market, 59th metro population in the nation, but it's still under 1 million. Even though you stretched out the metro to include Santa Fe, I do not think that really an XFL team is going to come here, as much as I hate to say that. Enough of my rambling, back to San Antonio. I think that this could really possibly work out. The reason I was hesitant was because I thought that they're behind the Cowboys, they're behind the Texans. I don't think they have room for that. However, the XFL needs markets, and San Antonio, I feel, has been ready for a pro football team for a long time. Honestly, if the Chargers were to move anywhere, I would want them to move to San Antonio. That would be the only move that I would support, with the exception of Albuquerque. But anyway, moving on. You can see they're die hard for the Spurs. They've always been a great college team. Like, they've always loved the University of Texas. They're die hard fans down there. Large market, die hard fans. The only issue is they might have a little bit trouble integrating themselves with the locals. But San Antonio is a great spot. Anyway, number 2 out of 10 possible XFL expansion teams is Hartford, Connecticut. Now this one makes all the sense of the world. It's one of the larger markets in the Northeast. They were diehard for the Whalers when they were there. May they rest in peace. They've always been amazing supporting teams, and Vince McMahon, WWE, may I remind you, is based in Connecticut. This makes all the sense in the world. You can almost shoe this one in. It's going to happen at this point. No matter what happens, Hartford is going to get an XFL team. The reason that they didn't get one in the original was because they were trying too hard. They were trying to compete with the NFL, get NFL markets, instead of focusing on building XFL markets. But Hartford makes all the sense in the world. Honestly. It makes perfect sense to expand to Hartford. Moving on now, number 3 in the list of possible XFL expansion cities is San Diego, California. A better option could not be found. It's in Southern California, one of the largest cities in the United States. It's an NFL market, which is rare to find an NFL market without an NFL team. That hadn't really happened since Los Angeles. But either way, San Diego, perfect city for expansion westward. You got some good northeast teams, which Vince McMahon is familiar with. San Diego is an oddity. Most big western cities have an NFL team. Most big western cities, leagues take advantage of that. Even just mid-size western cities like Salt Lake City. Despite the huge metro population, the regular population is low, like in the 200,000s. But it still happened. It still worked. So finding a city like San Diego is rare, and the XFL has to take advantage of that in order to get big markets. San Diego will support a team. They have in the past. This is perfect. I'm not sure why Vince wouldn't go to San Diego. There really is no reason. Sure, they have had issues with the stadium and such, but it can't be fixed. The XFL needs to do this. If the XFL is a man starving in the desert, then San Diego is a huge buffet table. Take advantage of it. Anyways, the number 5 market for XFL expansion is Providence, Rhode Island. Now, this may seem a bit unlikely, Maybe not as likely as some of the other ones. However, it's one of the larger markets in the Northeast. It gets you into Rhode Island. And imagine the rivalry between Hartford and Providence. That would be an amazing Northeastern rivalry. And that's one of the things that a league needs to build up on. Rivalries. You need geographical rivalries that make sense. And there is not a clearer one than Providence and Hartford. I really think that they should expand to Providence. It's one of those markets that has never really been given a chance to show itself off. This one might be a bit of a risk considering the lack of exposure to major teams. But I've got faith in them. I think that they can do it. They always fill up the Dunkin' Donuts Center for Providence basketball games. And I think that they will support an XFL franchise. It might just be me wanting to watch Providence and Hartford duke it out. I think that would be an amazing territorial rivalry. But I still think that it should happen. Even with the negative signs, I really want it to happen. Anyway, moving on. The 6th possible city for XFL expansion is Virginia Beach, Virginia. Now, out of all of the cities, I think that this one is probably the least likely. However, it's got a nice metro population, and Virginia really has no NFL team. I mean, sure, they've got the Panthers and the Redskins, but really, they don't really have anything. I've heard this in talks for possible NBA expansion. Like, I heard it's one of the more likely cities. This in Richmond. But yeah, I think either Virginia Beach or Richmond is a very likely spot for XFL expansion. Plus, it's close to Vince McMahon's hometown in Charlotte, North Carolina, which I almost put on the list. However, it makes almost no business sense to expand to North Carolina. However, I do feel that he might expand to one of the Carolinas, either this or Myrtle Beach, which, consider that number 11 on the list, Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. But yeah, I think he should take advantage of the large population in Virginia Beach and the metro area, generally in Virginia. I think that he should take advantage of that and expand there. It's one of the bigger markets. Anyway, I'm now moving on to the 7th team for possible XFL expansion is St. Louis, Missouri. I think that they should be given another chance at a pro football franchise. I mean, the only real reason that they moved that I can see, bad stadium, But the Edward Jones Dome still is amazing. It was my favorite stadium as a kid for no real reason. But I just sort of fell in love with the Edward Jones Dome for no real reason. But either way, they love the Cardinals. They loved the St. Louis Cardinals, the football team, before they moved to Arizona, which, by the way, side tangent, never name a team after another team in the city. It makes things so much more confusing, and it is awful. If you do, I will find you and I will kill you. Forget I said that last part, but anyway, they loved the Cardinals, they loved the Rams. I just think it makes a lot of sense to expand to St. Louis. They got a nice population. They're a good open Midwestern state. Get you into the bridge Midwestern, and possibly, now I don't think they should do this, but in a business sense, it makes sense. St. Louis, now I'm stretching the definition, and I'm going to pretend that St. Louis can get them into the Chicago market. It's not going to happen, but that's a possible reason that they could consider expanding to St. Louis. But I think that St. Louis is just all around a great spot for expansion. Anyway, moving on. The number 8 possible spot for XFL expansion is Oklahoma City. Now, while it is more of a smaller population than some of the others compared to, like, San Diego and San Diego, it really just makes sense. They've got a diehard following for the Thunder. And while it might have been technically a failure in Oklahoma City, it's been anything but, realistically. They've got a nice population. They're a good Midwestern state. A rival between Oklahoma City and San Antonio could start brewing up, which once again is what the league needs. It makes a lot of sense to come to OKC. Anyway, moving on to the number 9 spots for possible XFL expansion is Louisville, Kentucky. This is great. It's great. They love the Cardinals. Love the Louisville Cardinals. They're a nice big city, gets you into Kentucky, maybe even a bit of Virginia and West Virginia, possibly Northern Ohio. I think it's just a great spot. You know? And it's somewhat, it could be considered a mid-Atlantic state. It's really good. Nice population. This is a really good spot for expansion, in my opinion. They've got nice places. They could even have a rivalry with St. Louis for the battle for Louis' Cup, or Lewis's Cup, depending on who wins it. Put that on a t-shirt. Moving on, the final spot for XFL expansion that I see as likely is New York City. Now, I know what you're saying. Oh wait, doesn't this reg rule 1 that it can't be an NFL city? Yes, it does. But you just can't pass up on New York. Doesn't even have to be in the Manhattan market like this. You could put one in Brooklyn, the Bronx, Staten Island. You know, just generally around that area. It doesn't even have to be in the main part of Long Island. Even though I really do want to see one in Eastern Long Island. I think that a spot in New York just has to happen if the league is going to succeed. Because, once again, they need big markets and rivalries. You could have a Northeastern Tri-Cup between New York, Providence, and Hartford. Gather in a large following in the Northeast. So possibly, maybe expansions to places like Rochester, or places in Pennsylvania, New Jersey. Build a following. And that's what New York City does. Just take it out of Giants and Jets territory. Take it out of the more western cities and maybe move it a bit eastern. Maybe even somewhat southern. But go to New York. I was so close to putting a team from Canada. However, I just don't think it's likely, even though I really want to see it happen. Like maybe a team in Toronto, Mississauga, Quebec City, Montreal, Vancouver. It would be nice, but I don't think it's going to happen. Also, with McMahon's national anthem thing, I think that could get weird for a little bit. But oh, Canada. I'm sorry. Some other cities that I considered were Columbus, Ohio, Albuquerque, New Mexico, Portland, Oregon, Charlotte, North Carolina, and generally somewhere in the Midwest. Just again, that Midwest following. But I had to rule it out. Just because I didn't see them as likely. Portland would be the most likely out of the least likely, though. Thank you all for watching this crappy internet video. It did take me the longest to make, but in general, I am the most proud of this one. Just because of how long it took me to make. But thank you. I am the king of the internet. Subscribe to your king, or else I will have you beheaded. I am your king, formerly known as GRC. Like the video. Subscribe if you want to. Thank you all for watching. Eat your vegetables. Goodbye.